A report by the GAO last year found that immigration judges have granted asylum to 3,709 aliens whose asylum claims were prepared by others who were convicted of immigration fraud. Many of the aliens were involved in the fraud, and investigators stated that most of the aliens had not suffered persecution. None of those cases had been reopened according to the Department of Justice. What action have you taken to investigate these cases? No, I'm talking about a report by the General Accounting Office of aliens who made asylum claims and were assisted in making those claims by individuals who were convicted of fraud, immigration fraud.
Obviously, fraud is an area that we are mainly focused on. I will tell you, Chairman, that both our Office of General Counsel and Homeland Security and our almost 900 plus attorneys within Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Pull your mic up a little closer, please.
Turn it on.
Have had a tremendous, thank you, sir, have had, have focused their efforts on detection of fraud. And we will obviously focus on these 3,000 in particular. We believe that
My question was, what action have you taken to investigate those cases?
In those cases that we've reviewed, we have opened matters in order to take a look at them and see the facts and circumstances of each case. We will look at each one of those.
Have you instructed your ICE attorneys to review those cases and file motions to reopen those where fraud is suspected?
Those, sir, and every other, because there are more than those, in which we believe there may be a fraud aspect that were parts of ongoing investigations.
If your answer is yes, then in how many of those cases were motions filed? There's 3,709 cases. In how many of those have your ICE attorneys filed motions to revoke or bring into question whether those grants of asylum were legitimate?
I don't have that number directly in front of me, but I certainly can get that to you promptly.
How quickly can you get it to us?
Tomorrow?
That would be wonderful. Have any of the asylum grants been rescinded by a judge? Add that to your list of questions. On August 29, Secretary Johnson directed the Homeland Security Advisory Council to evaluate whether ICE's private detention operations should continue. Wouldn't ending the use of such facilities adversely impact ICE's ability to detain removable aliens, including criminals?
It would pretty much turn our system upside down, sir, because we are almost completely contractor run with respect to our detention facilities. We'd have to build detention centers. We'd have to hire staff.
Or conversely, wouldn't you be forced to release criminal aliens that would otherwise be detained?
We will not be releasing any criminal aliens. We've been directed specifically by the Secretary that we can't do that.
Congress has mandated that ICE maintain at least 34,000 detention beds. Could you meet that statutory mandate without private detention facilities?
No.
And last year, you told the committee that ICE released over 30,000 in fiscal year 2014 who had a total of 79,059 criminal convictions. Later, we learned that we now have more than 92,000 convictions, 13,000 more than originally reported. ICE was aware of this larger number before your testimony last April of 2015. Why was it not reported to the committee that the number was higher than?
In April, sir?
Yes.
When I appeared last, or first and last time. Chairman, I saw your letter regarding this inquiry, and I take very seriously these concerns you have. Let me urge you to consider when we cannot press a button for data to be spewed out, particularly with respect to this criminal release data you wanted, that says as of March 23rd, 2015 or 2014, these are the number of criminal convictions that apply to releases that we've had. It's not a pressing of the button. The information we provided you was as of March 23rd, 2015. And that number is could very well, and does, as you know now, increase when you run the data again, because in the interim there may be additional convictions. What we did...
Let me ask you this then. ICE data shows, has ICE rearrested any of these aliens?
I have to believe so, yes, but I cannot give you a number right now, Chairman.
How soon could you give us a number?
That I'll have to go back and see. These are essentially manual searches when we do something like that, on a special inquiry like this.
ICE data shows that one or more aliens with terrorism convictions were released from ICE custody in fiscal year 2015 under the Supreme Court's Zadvidas decision. What action did you take in those cases to recommend that Secretary Johnson send notice to the State Department to invoke visa sanctions against those recalcitrant countries under INA Section 243D? In other words, you release people because of that Supreme Court decision onto our streets. It is almost always because other countries have refused to take back people that we have attempted to deport, but we have a process whereby sanctions can be imposed, visa sanctions can be imposed on those countries. Did Secretary Johnson send notice to the Department of State to invoke visa sanctions against any of the recalcitrant countries that refuse to take back individuals, particularly individuals who were released who have terrorism convictions, of all things? What is being done to make sure that we know we have terrorists in our custody that should be deported, that they are indeed deported to their home country, and make those countries take back these individuals?
Even when we're required to release, Chairman, people with criminal records, including concerns about terrorism, under the Zadvidas decision, we don't just put them on the street. We do release them because we're required to, under conditions, reporting conditions, perhaps even a monitor. With respect to the visa sanctions issue, I am not aware of that having been exercised once to date, although I know that the Secretary has under consideration doing so with respect to one or more of these countries.
I've seen no evidence that he has done that, and there are provisions that authorize mandatory detention for terrorist aliens in the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 236A, and 8 Code of Federal Regulations 241.14. What actions did you take or the Secretary take to invoke those provisions to maintain custody of those terrorists?
We have at least done so in one case. We do not release someone who we have the ability to detain under the mandatory detention provisions. I will assure you that.
But to your knowledge, Secretary Johnson has never sent a notice to the Department of State to invoke visa sanctions against any country that refuses to take back their own citizens who are required by our laws to be sent out of this country.
Sir, he has done so once that I'm aware of. I don't know that we've heard from the Department of State.
How recently was that?
Well, I know he had it under consideration. It's been whispered in my ear that that letter may not have gone out yet, but I know he's at least considering it seriously with respect to, remind me the country? Gambia.
Well, we're into the last months of this presidency and the last months of the Secretary's service. This problem is not a new one. It's been going on preceding this administration. Don't you think it's time that the administration stepped up and started enforcing our laws with regard to countries that don't cooperate with us?
I know that the Secretary takes that very seriously, and as I say, he's taking under consideration this, in particular with this one country. There may well be more.
My time's expired. The chair recognizes